Welcome back. Hit subscribe, ring the bell, and follow me at DirtleMTG on Twitter to keep up to date with the most recent videos and other posts. You can help support this content by hitting like and share, and by checking out the links in the description below. Alright, it's time to dirtle. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Why Though, where I talk about cards that maybe should be used more in Commander, or in some cases, less. Today we're going to cover the latter and talk about why you should maybe consider replacing Sensei's Divining Top in your deck. It is a fantastic card, and it is very useful in many decks, but often just wastes time in every other deck. As always, let's start by reading the card. It costs 1 mana of any type of mana to cast, and is just an artifact. Its ability reads as follows: 1 mana of any color, look at the top 3 cards of your library, then put them back in any order. Tap, draw a card, and then put Sensei's Divining Top on top of its owner's library. Obviously, this card can go in any deck you want. It's very cheap, only costing the 1 mana of any color. On top of that, it's an artifact. This type of card is easily interacted with, though if you want to manipulate it, blue and to a lesser extent white can both benefit. Red and black also have some interaction with artifacts that are beyond just destruction, but those are a little more rare, especially in black. All of this said, it is the abilities that will be the focus of the arguments in this video. So, let's begin with talking about that first ability. For a single mana, you get to look at the top 3 cards of your deck, and put them back in any order you choose. This is the bread and butter, if you will, of this card. This effect is very powerful when paired with other cards that can use or abuse the top of the deck. Some cards that abuse the top of the deck very readily are Ende, Jadzi, Elminster, Elsha, and Yuriko, just to name a few. The list of useful commanders with this card and other cards can go on and on. But with that statement, I bet you're wondering why I argue against not using this in like every deck ever. Well, it's the first ability where it all begins. While it's delicious for some decks, especially with the commanders mentioned beforehand, most decks, this doesn't do anything that relevant. Knowing what you're going to draw is a decent advantage to be sure, but that might be more powerful in a 1v1 format. We play a multiplayer format, and as such the game state can change in those turns around the table as you wait for your turn to roll back around. Here's the crux of the reason this card shouldn't be in every deck. This card doesn't change what you're doing because it can't move those cards to respond to the changing circumstances. It doesn't give you an opportunity to take advantage of those top cards unless you are using Sensei's Divining Top in a deck that can actually utilize it with, like I said, the previous mentioned commander examples. However, you can grab the top card if you really need to with the second ability if you happen to luck into removal or some other advantage. Its second ability reads, tap, draw a card, and then put this card on top of its owner's library. So while I said this card doesn't move cards for you, it kinda lets you sorta do that. One at a time, repeatedly, but it does kind of fate seal you as well. It's definitely not scry, which in general is a better effect if you need to move cards off the top. The second ability also does have the very niche benefit of if it gets stolen, you can either steal it back or they return it to you by activating the ability. I did want to point that out. I haven't seen it happen, but hey, you never know, you might be the lucky one. Where this card does work often, again, is with those same commanders I keep mentioning. It can essentially be a free draw or even part of some combos in those decks, especially things like Elminster or Alesha of the Infinite. You can put the card on the top of your deck, and then draw or recast it, triggering other effects you have on board, which can lead to eventually winning the game. Any commander that cares about the top card of the deck, like Melik, Izzet Paragon, or Hans Eriksson, could use this card. However, this card largely belongs in those decks only. Otherwise, it does nothing productive and just wastes time. The commanders that can all use this card effectively, if you've noticed, can do something in conjunction with Sensei's Divining Top, and that is move the cards on the top of the library. Ende will get a card off the top when she attacks, either drawing or casting it, just as Yuriko does and can bleed people for their life total. Elsha and Jadzi allow you to cast things off the top, moving the cards off of there. Elminster lets you scribe bad cards out of the way, so you can arrange the top ones that you want. Outside of commanders that have this kind of ability, or outside of a deck that has this ability a lot within it, and or in the command zone, there just really isn't much use for this card in said deck, in my opinion. If you're playing decks and commanders that don't have a way to manipulate the top of the library very readily, and get those cards into play or into your hand almost ever, then there are better options you can choose. Miri's Guile and Sylvan Library are great green enchantments, though a little bit expensive. Chandra, Torch of Defiance, and other red impulsive draw, and even Soothsaying may be better than this in most circumstances for those specific decks. Any scry effect will be better in those decks that can't abuse top. Sensei's Divine Top is an excellent card in Commander, there's no denying that. However, it is only excellent where it excels with the help of other cards. If your deck doesn't have the top of deck movers or ways to cast off the top, draw and scry is your friend. Alright, that does it for this episode of Why Though, and hopefully I made a case for considering cards other than top in your deck building. If you have any suggestions for a card, let me know in the comments below. I always read the comments, so there is a chance that I will cover a card you suggest. Hit the like and share to help support this content, and if you want to help even more, consider subscribing and checking out the link tree in the description below. Until next time, stay safe out there.